Hello and welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. This is Dave and this is After Dark. And Santa Claus has been very, very nice to Fulham this year. We must have been very good boys because we've been given 3 wins in a row. Yesterday at West Ham, picking up 3 points at the London Stadium. Happy days. You don't get to have 3 wins in the Premier League very often. So we're going to celebrate that tonight. We're also going to look forward a little bit and look at Palace and what I would say is a tough run of games thereafter. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer window because we just can't resist. And then we got plenty of questions too on our Discord group. Thanks to anyone who's joining us live tonight on the stream. Just stick your comments in the chat if you're on YouTube or send them to us on X, or even better, just post a message in the Discord group. If you're not already a member, there's details on our X post of how to join. So I'm not here alone. I'm joined tonight by the man who was part of the pre-game show all the way over from Fulham, Boston. He's currently on mute. He's about to switch that off. It's Mr. Mike Levy. How you doing, Mike?
I am having a wonderful, wonderful Christmas period, Dave. Although I think I heard a mispronunciation in the intro. I think it's pronounced Silva Claus, not Santa Claus, and that's who's giving us our good form right now. But very happy to be here. Great 3 points to get, and I don't know why I'm getting too much stuff about West Ham in my feed right now. We'll talk about that a little more, but yeah, that's pretty crazy to see some of the things that they're saying about us now.
Yeah, well, they can't resist having a little pop, you know. They're massive after all, aren't they? They'll be the biggest club in the Championship next year, of course.
League
Anyway,
One.
and someone who was at the game yesterday alongside Mark, who was making I think it was his first ever away game for Fulham. You know, he's a Fulham season ticket holder and he enjoys his home comforts, but every now and again, or for the first time ever, he's ventured away from Craven Cottage and he's got 3 points. Mike, you were there. You were with Mark. How was yesterday?
Yeah, really good. So Mark was a very brave boy and he managed to fight his way through the hordes of people coming through Westfield, Stratford, who plenty of West Ham fans in the queue outside the Stone Island shop. Managed to get his way past all of them and into the away end to join myself. And Skibby was there as well. So we all met up beforehand and were able to really enjoy a nice 3 points and a bit of a smash and grab. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
We will get into that. We will. And yeah, we were just talking before the show. Mr. Levy here's hoping to get over for a game this year, and we were discussing what could we do, how could we get the whole That's So Craven community together, or those of that are able to come over to the UK. Sorry to Elton, Sam, and Jack. One day, guys, one day we'll get you here. But when Mike comes over, we'll definitely try and do something then as well. I see Mark's also joined us in the chat, so he's here enjoying yesterday's win and you know, joining us in the comments tonight. So that's great too. Right, so West Ham. I mean, Mike, call Timbry the Traveller. I'm going to have to make sure that I address you both properly tonight. I think we went into this one. We knew that it was, you know, an opportunity to get points. West Ham are in a pretty bad place, but we haven't had a great record over there at the London Stadium. We did win a couple of years ago, of course, with Andreas, but last year was a right debacle when we lost 3-2 around the similar kind of time, if I remember right. Maybe I'm miles off. I don't know. But anyway, we did drop points there last year at London Stadium, and it was never going to be easy, especially with absentees. So, you know, heading into this one, Traveller, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I can't say I was optimistic, to be honest. I feel like our bad record there was something that, you know, was worrying me. I kind of feel like that West Ham had this game earmarked as one that they needed to win. You know, nobody looks at Fulham at home and thinks, oh, we'll probably lose that one. Regardless of how well or badly we're playing, it's always, you know, the opposition kind of just assume that we're there for the taking. And I just didn't have a particularly, you know, strong feeling that we were going to get a win out of this. I think if you'd have offered me a point before, I probably would have taken it, considering we'd won our previous 2 league games. So that would have just kept the gap between us and the bottom three as you were. So yeah, can't say I was optimistic, but I felt like West Ham didn't help themselves, or certainly their fans didn't really help them in what you'd expect to be a really big game for them. That they didn't really get behind the team very well. It kind of and I felt that the way that we started sort of capitalized on that, in that we were able to kind of keep the ball and sort of showed our intent early on with really good effort from Wilson, having to be tipped over from Areola, and I felt that just kind of sort of settled any nerves that we might have had. It sort of seemed like we sort of set our stall out as in we're going to try and dominate the ball and make things happen in what was like a controlled setting. It wasn't particularly gung ho and high tempo. It was a very sort of slow game, but felt that we sort of had the majority of the possession, and anything that we did, let West Ham back in was kind of for our own doing, rather than anything particularly, great or inventive from their end.
Yeah, no, very good points. And Levy, I just wanted to ask you. Motus is the other name I could call you tonight. I just wanted to ask you two questions, and this is you got the Fulham DC flag right there, the Fulham DC scarf. Yes, that pretty awesome bit of kit that they're producing now. I just wanted to ask you two questions. One, you watched the game at the usual venue, did you? And secondly, what you felt about the fact it was an unchanged lineup.
Yeah, I mean, we had a great turnout. We had a bunch of people come out, watch the match at Old Magoon Saloon. It was a great time. We will be there again for Palace as well, but we'll come to that a little bit later. Really happy to see the unchanged lineup, candidly. It was one of those things where I'm not sure anyone did anything to necessarily lose their place, and especially with us missing 5 right now, the 3 AFCON boys and the 2 to injury, I don't really know what the rotation would have been, maybe bringing in King. I was pretty happy with what we saw. And it was the second match in a row that we were playing against a team with a low block. And as Michael said specifically, as we kind of thought about how we approach the game, no one thought this was going to be a barnstormer. No one thought this is going to be a classic that we're going to rewatch every year. This is not St. Mooney's Day that we need to watch every year. But if anyone had leftover ham, we were actually definitely using it for this game. And it was a really fun opportunity to watch us control the game. We talked about this with Mark before in the preview of the match, but this is another match of a team that we need to beat. It's a team that we need to take points from every step of the way and continue to progress ourselves. And so it was really good to see a professional performance from the boys. It was really good to see an unchanged lineup and start to see us get a bit of form.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think it was a surprise, really, just because we're so limited in options at the moment. And I think that's what makes the last few results just so the last 2 results in particular, so pleasing, is that we've done it without 5 first team players, and actually I'm afraid it's to you, Trevor, as well. It's very rare that you see us break the low block, particularly away from home. That's have we mastered it, or is it just circumstantial? We played a team that are a bit underconfident and down the bottom, and because I did feel, and let me put a little bit more context to that. I did feel, particularly in the second half, very much their tactic was just to sit back and try and break, quickly, let us have the ball. And they did create a few chances that way. In actual fact, I think Wilson probably should have done better with one of them. But was that pleasing to you to see that we've maybe found a way to break the low block?
I think that's a bit generous, to be honest. I think I'm not sure that we've mastered the art of that. I think, as you say, like Wilson had a good chance for West Ham. Callum Wilson, that is, and obviously Bowen as well probably should have scored, even though it was both our throw-in and a foul throw that they took. But anyway, that's Chris Kavanagh for you and his team of trusted officials. So, but yeah, I kind of felt we were riding our luck a little bit of that, but then that seemed to, West Ham kind of ran out of puff and ran out of ideas. And I think that we made a couple of changes that just sort of livened up the tempo in terms of Kenny came on for Smith Rowe, who Smith Rowe played he played quite well, but just you could see he was flagging a bit. Kenny coming on just allowed us to sort of re-establish that dominance on the ball. King coming on for Kevin was, a breath of fresh air because, King, he's so dynamic and plays at such a high tempo that it really just drove us forward. And even though he was playing in an unfamiliar position for him, sort of coming off the left, it allowed Robinson to get forward. Robinson, I thought, had an excellent game, by the way. You wouldn't know that the guy's barely played for 6 months, and then he's just come back in and played 4 in a row. I think apart from probably the first 20 minutes at Burnley where, he really looked rusty, he's been excellent since that. And I thought yesterday was a really strong performance for him, both defensively and going forward. He put in a delicious cross for Lukic, which felt Lukic should have done better to get his head on it. But other than that, we didn't have like a lot of clear-cut chances. So I can't say that we, have mastered the low block, and conquered it, if you like. I think it was, it was good play in order to fashion the first chance that when Wilson put the cross in unbelievably with his right foot, but that was cleared away. And then I feel like the follow-up to that is something that happens to a team when they're down the bottom I think it was Skulls, makes an absolute hash of the clearance, and Wilson just, volleys it in nicely, almost like an English batsman to an Australian fielder, just dollies up a nice little catch, and Raul stuck his head on it, and brilliant, to kind of almost nick a game, really. I think that it kind of felt like he was heading towards a 0-0, and we've gone and, grabbed the points late on. So, yeah, work to be done in terms of, getting past those teams that are really sort of, hard on in the low block. But I feel like we were the ones looking to win it towards the end, and that pleased me because it looked quite a tired performance overall, but we just got that second wind at the right time.
Yeah, it was Michael, you actually brought up two things that I want to make sure we touch on really quickly. I don't know about both of you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but does anyone else get like shivers, goosebumps, hives whenever we see Chris Kavanagh reffing a match?
Yeah, so I warned Mark beforehand because he was standing next to me and my dad was on his best behavior for about 15 minutes until he realized who the referee was, and after that it was just I know this is a family show, so I won't repeat some of the things that he said, but
this is after dark. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, even then, I'm not sure that we've got the correct certification to be able to say some of the things that
you can get in trouble for that in the UK, right?
Well, I mean, but yeah, Chris Kavanagh never fills you with confidence as a Fulham fan. So there was definitely that kind of just gave me a bit of worry. But sorry, you had a second point as well, Mike.
Yeah, Dave, I'm going to push this to you. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but as I think about kind of halfway through the season and who's our player of the season, I think there have definitely been shouts for Joa. Has been fantastic all season. I think me personally, I'm starting to move Chukwueze up my list a little more. But Harry Wilson right now, I mean, Dave, the composure he had, and we saw him have that fantastic assist. I think it was a week or two ago, where he takes it down off that pass from Robinson and puts this delicious cross to Bassey back post versus Burnley. This time it's a one-touch hit and it's right on Raul's head. I mean, there is nobody else getting that ball. Raul has a chance to look around, have a cup of coffee, decide where he wants to put it, and finishes that header perfectly. But the vein of form and the confidence that he has, I mean, Dave, is he moving up your ranks for the player of the match? I know there's also, and we'll talk about this when we come to transfers, talk about silly season. He's coming out of contract. Is this a guy you're starting to think we have to lock down?
Well, I mean, I was an advocate. I was surprised actually that we pulled the plug on the George deal on the last day of the last transfer window, just because Wilson was out of contract. Obviously, he wasn't showing the form he is now in his contract year ahead of the World Cup. Funny that, but he, at the time, I thought that seemed to make sense. That move, move on someone who's out of contract, bring in a younger player, with perhaps more upside potential. But actually, since that deal has gone through, Harry Wilson has broke into the team, and yeah, he's in a brilliant form, absolutely brilliant form. And I think you're right. The ball is everything about that goal. It's a striker's dream to get a ball into the box like that. And it's not the first time. He's also done that, as you said 2 weeks ago at Burnley, to find Bassi. Similar kind of looped ball into the box. So yeah, I think he's in really, really good form. And as Michael's, the traveller said at the start, he also had a great chance in the first half. It's actually a pretty good save by Areola. So he was and has been one of our most, threatening attacking players. He looks a goal threat. He's getting goals and assists, and he's definitely earning that new contract. Whether he signs one with us or signs one elsewhere, it's going to be really interesting in January, I think, because I think they'll be interested in him. And I think that he'll try and leverage us to try and get the best deal possible. He's already mentioned recently in an interview that this is an important contract for his family, aka pay me. So show me the money, as they would say in Jerry Maguire. So he's setting his stall out, really. He wants the big contract, and he's certainly showing that he should be in that conversation on the pitch. So
he also had one other opportunity in the first half that we have not talked about enough, and potentially the second best shot of the half coming from Joachim Andersen. Like, where did he learn that? That was a pretty great shot and a really great save from Areola. But if you rewatch Wilson specifically, where he goes to get the rebound, and I don't know how that wasn't a corner, by the way, but he breaks from the top of the 18. And it's almost like when when Wilson ironically hits the corner to ESR, just makes his way through almost unmarked. And that was another moment that I thought, he's creating something out of nothing. He offers us a little more of directness. And it's weird to say for a player who I wouldn't consider necessarily pacey, but he's always looking to attack. And you have these almost luxury players like an ESR, like a Kevin, even Chukwueze to a degree, who like to take 5-6 touches and dribble through. Wilson sees the goal, wants to hit a shot on goal, wants to hit a cross. He's always attacking it. And I think it's a great compliment to what we are getting from the other side right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a really good point there. He is creating things out of nothing at the moment for us, which is great, really, especially with the generally that would be players like Alex Iwobi and as you said, Chukwueze's been bringing us back into games and creating things out of nothing, and we haven't got those two at the moment. Well, he's been doing that consistently over the last couple of months, so fair play to him. And I throw one right back at you, actually, Motus, and that is, Cuenca has obviously stepped into the team for Calvin Bassey. Robinson's back. We've kept 2 clean sheets in a row. Coincidence?
I'm going to start out by saying justice is being served right now in the justice for Cuenca conversation. I love the competition in the squad. It is such a breath of fresh air that our third center back is potentially as good as our second center back. He's been fantastic. He has stepped in, fit like a glove. He was even doing some progressive ball movement up the field throughout the match to kind of open up some spaces and almost play like a third midfielder for a little bit, or a fourth midfielder rather, for a minute in there. And I really enjoyed seeing it. He has great chemistry with Robinson down that side, where he's able to drop up a little bit deeper, allow Robinson to not only attack more, but also defend a little bit higher in our half. So I've really enjoyed seeing that. The fact that he stepped in, had this great partnership with Anderson as well. It's almost like he hasn't missed a beat. I don't know what we do when Bassey comes back. Do we move to a 3 at the back? Does Bassey have to earn his way back in? It's a great problem to have. I really, really love seeing it. And the one thing I will tell you is he's a player. And I think he's only about 25 years old too. Like, he's not an old player. I think there's development. I think there's resell. And I think we only bought him for about £7 million. Like, this is an asset for us in the future that we need to be continuing to invest in. And I know Bassey has a big role in the locker room, but there is this opportunity where he could have some great resale value and we can kind of move him through. And if not, I'm really excited for next season to see a rotation of Joachim Andersen, Calvin Bassey, Jorge Cuenca, and Luke de Fougerols as our 4 center back options.
Yeah, Yeah, no, that'd be great to see another youth player integrated into the first team squad. Traveller, I've got to throw this question to you. So Cuenca's obviously come in. We've had a couple of clean sheets since he's been in. It's funny because I always visioned him as this really great player on the ball, but I actually don't think that's the asset that shone the most in the last two games. I think it's been his reading of the game, his ability to get blocks in, his positional play, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And it kind of almost, I think it shines a bit of a light on some of Bassey's flaws, that perhaps sometimes Bassey can be a little bit erratic and a little bit, all over the place, whereas Cuenca really seems like a safe pair of hands in there. I don't want to criticize Bassey too much because, while it hasn't been his best year, he was an absolute rock for us last season, and he's still an incredible athlete. But how's Silva going to manage this, Michael? Because if Cuenca's, continues to perform at this level, you'd think that Bassey's going to have a tough time to get back into the side, unless, as Mike said, they change the formation, which I don't think anyone would really advocate. How's Silva going to manage this? Because Bassey's a big personality in that dressing room. I don't think he's the kind of guy you'd want to upset. I think it would, he's a loud guy, and I think he sees himself as a first teamer. How does Silva manage this one?
Silva will manage it in the way that he manages most of these situations, and that's it's a meritocracy in that, whoever's got the shirt keeps it. I think it'll be interesting to see how Cuenca deals with the next run of games. We know that Palace are probably a bit more of a difficult proposition. This dealing with someone like Mateta, for example, you'd be quite confident with Bassey doing that. It'll be interesting to see how Cuenca and Anderson handle his physicality. Liverpool again, and I think Ekitike's a similar sort of, he's got that physicality, but he's probably more athletic as well. So there's tougher tests to come for Cuenca, which will really tell us where he is in, the hierarchy, because I think Cuenca had a really good game against Arsenal earlier in the season, if I remember rightly. So I'm not saying that he's unproven at all. I've really liked what I've seen from him, but it's a tricky one because Bassey will come back from AFCON whenever that is and probably expect to go straight back into the side. It will depend on what Cuenca's form is at the time. If he's had a couple of difficult games, then he might drop out. So I think, the case in point would be Cuenca's kind of taken his opportunity so far, whereas Kevin hasn't. And that's an easier switch higher up the pitch when Chukwueze returns or Iwobi or, whoever. Whereas Cuenca's doing a lot to kind of state his case for the shirt. And I think that Silva will acknowledge that and stick with it, providing that he keeps up this consistent form. But, we might have quite a lot of games, hopefully, as the season progresses, if we can go far in the cup. So there'll be opportunities for someone like Bassey to get back in, and he'll just have to bide his time like anybody else who's on the bench.
But Dave, we're seeing this comment right now about how we think, Cuenca is a better defender, but Bassey does better against these lumps up front. And we've already heard Traveller talk about how we've done against he's done well against Arsenal. He's taken his chances in the last two matches. He did well against Liverpool last year, and not to put anything past it. I mean, when we played Forest, their striker's not a small guy either.
No.
I got his name wrong last time, but he's a pretty big guy himself and pretty mobile. Dave, do you have concerns with that or with Cuenca at the back right now?
Genuinely, no. I haven't seen him have a bad game yet. So, and actually, I think a little bit of credit's due to Joachim Andersen as well for being able to work with different defensive partners. Often you can see when the defensive partnership's broken up, you'll see issues. But I think they've looked great together. And I think a little bit of credit is not just for Cuenca, but it's also for Andersen and being that leader at the back. And you mentioned at the start, I think he is up, in with the real shout so far of player of the season, just because of his general consistency. It's not been perfect by any means, but I think he's probably been the most consistent performer. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be the test now when he starts to play up against these big lumps like Mateta for Palace and the likes. So that's going to be really interesting.
I will say I did love that little ball he put into Wilson. I think that was actually the ball for the slide rule pass that he put across the goal for what was it?
Yeah.
Lukic and Kevin and
Yeah.
and Raul and everybody. I mean, I think Anderson is showing him something on the training ground, and Cuenca goes, "Oh, I can do that too," and hit that long diagonal ball to open up the space. I can't say it enough. I'm incredibly impressed with the guy. No, as I said, no fault to Cuenca, as both of you have said as well, or to Bassi, excuse me, but Cuenca has really been showing out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've been quite positive about all of the performances so far, but I don't think any of us would stand here and say that Kevin had a particularly good game yesterday. And there was a lot of criticism online for Kevin. So if you could indulge me for a moment, I do want to have a little bit of an appeal to the fan base, and that's that Kevin's not in a good place at the moment. He looks underconfident. His decision making's off. I think that it's quite right to question his performances and whether he should be starting, given what we're seeing on the pitch right now. But I'm seeing a lot of fans, completely writing him off, like waste of money. He's rubbish, and I just plead, be patient with this guy, please. I mean, he's coming late from in the transfer window. He's barely played I think he's played about 690 minutes in total. It's not a lot of games. It notoriously takes people time for players from other leagues, particularly lower leagues, to get up to speed to the Premier League, get up to speed with the manager's plans, and at the moment he's playing with, like a player who's underconfident, and he needs a goal and he just needs something to go his way. And I just think that, yes, he's not playing well. We can all acknowledge that, but don't write the guy off. I don't think it's helpful. I think we need to support him, and I think that we just need to stick with him. And I think hopefully this season we start to see the best of him, but it might be next. And I think we just gotta be okay with that. He's 22 and he signed a long contract, guys. So come on, let's back the guy and be patient with him. He might come out of the team in the next one, or maybe Marco will keep playing him to try and play him into some form. But Marco, I mean, he didn't have a good game. This is the traveller I'm directing this to. Where do you stand on Kevin?
So I think you're absolutely right. We need to be patient with the guy. I remember a player turning up at Fulham who people were quite excited about, and then looked dreadful for about a year, and then the penny started to drop and he got better and better and better, and then he went on to become our highest ever Premier League goal scorer, and that was Clint Dempsey. So a bit of patience, please. I absolutely agree. Similar with ESR, we there were people talking about trying to get rid of him in the summer, and you can see what a bit of confidence does. He's playing a lot better now. He looks a bit more like the player that we've signed. Where I don't think that Kevin is helping himself is, and I don't know if this is a tactical thing or a confidence thing or both, he always wants it to feet, and he only comes to life once he receives the ball to feet. Make some runs off the ball, please, Kevin. Make a little run in behind, or there was one particularly on Monday where I think when we were quite static and we needed to sort of get our foot on the ball, I think this was sort of in the second half before Kearney came on. Cuenca had the ball. Smith Rowe dropped in to collect. Cuenca passes it into Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe passes it back to him. And a big space had opened up for where Smith Rowe had just vacated. And Kevin was still stood in the same position. That's when he needs to be on the move. You're not going to receive the ball to feet every time. If anything, you're making it more difficult for yourself, because once you get the ball to your feet, the defender comes and closes you down and stands you up. I know he's got quick feet, but a lot of the time I'm seeing him get dispossessed in those situations. Whereas if he's on the move and he can collect the ball in his stride, he's already done half the job of beating the defender. And then he's away and he's on the run. Like Mike mentioned about Wilson's anticipating things because he's playing with confidence at the moment. He's gambling on things because he's playing with confidence. So there is an element there where once things, I think, start to go right for Kevin, it will become more instinctual for him. But he's not helping himself by standing still, because he almost looks disinterested at times. And I don't for a second believe he's disinterested, because I think when we lose the ball, his work rate's actually good. If anything, he's a bit too over exuberant, and he goes flying into challenges that worry you a bit, but you can see that he cares and he wants to make an impression. I think where he's not helping himself is when we're in possession. You saw Josh King come on yesterday, and those were the kind of movements that we're looking for from a wide player, making those out to in runs, those off the ball movements, particularly down that left-hand side where we rely heavily on the link up between Iwobi when he's there, Robinson, and whoever is playing either on the left or on the inside, depending on where Iwobi is. We're not quite getting that from Kevin at the moment, and I feel like that's something that he could do to help himself, even if he's not successful in, receiving the ball, or he's just looking like he's trying to make things happen. Wilson does a lot of those on the right-hand side where you can see sometimes the ball comes over to Anderson. Wilson makes that run, and the amount of times he sort of throws his arms up in the air because it hasn't come, but then he goes back and he does it again. Whereas I feel like Kevin just is very static, and that's not helping his cause. So at the risk of sounding like Harry Redknapp, just run around, son, and it will come.
Mike, I just wanted to ask you, where do you stand then ahead of Palace? If you're Marco Silva, do you keep Kevin in, and work with him? He needs games. He's only going to get better with games, right? Or does he come out, King come in, who's showing, looks in really good nick at the moment. He's just found a little bit of form, and you just build Kevin back up from the bench. Where do you stand on that one?
Oh, that's a hard question. And I was going to say, Michael, I couldn't agree more that he does look a little devoid of confidence right now. He is static. He's taking extra touches. He's not picking his head up the way that he necessarily did when he did his Leeds cameo, and he's putting these Travella crosses in. It doesn't look the same, and you can see the frustration not only with him but with other people. I think it's hard. I'm one to not mess with a winning formula, so I would probably keep him in, even though I do think Josh King has deserved a shot back in the lineup. And I really do love that kind of incremental play that we can do in that interchange when we have Wilson, ESR, and King, and any of them can play anywhere across that three behind Raul. I really do enjoy that. I would say the one other thing on Kevin, and I think it's an interesting thing to think about, is we have not been very consistent with who we've had around him for the season. Jedi was out for 6 months. I don't even know if he had a training session with him before the Burnley game. I would not say that with a ton of confidence. He has this rapport with Rodrigo Muniz, who hasn't played in 2 months now, that he hasn't gotten to play with. We lose the AFCON boys. We've swapped our attacking mids. I think it's really hard for him to get a consistent passage of play with the teammates that he has. And I couldn't agree more with both of you that he's going to take time, but you see the skill, you see the desire to be good, you see the desire to reward people. And again, even if he's not doing all of the best stuff, it's clear that people are watching our left side, whether it's because of Robinson being back, whether it's because he offers something different and may provide a spark. Maybe it's because ESR tends to drift more to the left than the right and start creating in there and having those little passages of play. But I do think that if we can get him firing, and he has gotten himself into positions to score, I can count 3-4 just in the last 2-3 matches, that I think it's going to come. And I think, as I said before, it complements what a Wilson does really well in being very, very direct in towards goal. It opens up that space for ESR to go in there. Now, granted, they're playing about the same amount of time. And yes, I do have to pop my quick shot at ESR because he still has not completed a full 90 for us. But that being said, it's this opportunity for what he can be. And I think, and I said this with Mark earlier in the week, we're at a little bit of a luxury point right now where we are a stable mid-table club. This is where you take risks with some players and help them develop and see the investment. I meant that when I said that in regards to the youth players, whether that's King, whether that's Ridgen, whether that's Kusiasari, whether that's Defugerals next year. But with also players like Kevin, we have a luxury. And I can count on one hand in the Silva era how many signings have actually come good in the first season. And the ones that come to mind to me are Palhinha, obviously, Harry Wilson, obviously, in the championship. I don't know if we count Leno, but Leno came in and was very, very good immediately. I can't think of any others. And all of the other ones that we're talking about, whether it's the ESRs of the world, Bassi wasn't at his best in his first season. Look, his second season, he takes that step up to the next level. I think it's going to take time. And I want to give him that time in this period, because I think benching him now when there is really limited competition could be really detrimental to his confidence. And it's also giving King the ability to come on against tired legs and be that buzzy, bright player, create the space in there, have the opportunity to be creative and give us a different look. That's really working right now. And I think that's the role that Kevin should be playing once Chukwueze comes back. But for right now, let's give him a chance to stretch his legs, take some opportunities, and hey, maybe he gets himself in a really good position and actually finishes one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Traveller, you mentioned earlier, just back on the game here, we rode our luck a little bit at times. There was a few chances West Ham I can remember, particularly in the second half, where Bowen you mentioned, and we also spoke briefly about Callum Wilson. One in particular where he managed to get the better of Cuenca, and he had a shot that went past the left-hand post. It wasn't the easiest chance, but actually the one right after, where I think Bowen played him in down the right and he kind of launched it over the bar. I expect Callum Wilson to be doing better in that position. I think that was a really, really good chance for West Ham. So it must have been just euphoria in that way end when we managed to, as you said, nick it with the goal from Raul. Can you just, for those that weren't there, can you just talk us a little bit about the experience of being at West Ham in that away end, when that goal went in, and I'm sure it livened up our fan base for the final 5 minutes and what was probably otherwise a particularly drab afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously great to score a late winner. So yeah, absolutely, fantastic. It prompted as well one of my favourite songs of the moment when we tend to beat a team that's down the bottom, the Say Hello to QPR. I love that one. That's one of my favourites. So I don't think many of our fans singing that realise that West Ham are playing them in the cup a couple of weeks. We don't mean in the cup. We're not saying say hello to them when we play them you play them in the cup. We're saying say hello to them next season when you're in the same division as them in the Championship, just so we're clear. But yeah, no, absolutely brilliant. That West Ham away end, as you went there last year, Dave, it's quite weird, isn't it? Like, we were in the upper tier, which feels like it's in a different dimension to the lower tier. So it's very much a strange kind of atmosphere when you're there. But yeah, it still came across that obviously the Fulham fans were, going into delirium. You had the usual evacuation of the London Stadium when West Ham concede a goal, which is always enjoyable to watch as well. So that was quite pleasing, and yeah, obviously as well, great to sort of hang around at the end and give the players a send off. That 3 away wins in a row doesn't happen very often when you support Fulham, especially in the Premier League. So you've got to take the wins and enjoy them where you can, because these things are quite rare. So yeah, really enjoyed that sort of final goal, obviously, and the sort of 10 minutes afterwards, because I felt like we saw that out actually more comfortably than we'd sort of been earlier in the second half. West Ham sort of huffed and puffed a bit, and we did our usual Issa Diop substitution just to kind of shore things up. So that was great. But yeah, always nice to get an away win, particularly against a London rival.
Michael, you mentioned this multiple times, and Dave, I want to direct this to you because I know there's been a lot of stick for Raul out there. And Michael, you talked about multiple times we weren't necessarily aggressive. We kind of rode our luck at times. And I know there's been a lot of conversations about Raul's effort, but not necessarily having that finishing touch. He's now 2-2, and the finish he had is a poacher's finish. And I don't know about you guys, but I hear all the time about how Erling Haaland scores these amazing goals. If Haaland has the same performance as Raul does, I feel like that's the top story on Match of the Day. Dave, does Raul deserve a little more credit for coming up when we've really needed him to and getting these goals in the last two games, especially when they're 1-0s?
You probably asked the wrong person to get the the answer that you're looking for here. So I'm actually going to just fast forward a little bit because we've had a question. Well, it's more of a statement really from Chris Eves on the Discord, which I was going to bring up later. But since you brought up Raul Jimenez, I thought I'd raise that now. He said he feels Jimenez is undervalued and underappreciated by many supporters. That he's a big fan. He has the most difficult job in the team and always gives 110% to the cause. So pleased he's scoring again, and I hope he gets the credit he deserves. Give him the service and he will deliver. I mean, I'm not, and I have to be clear, I'm not Raul Jimenez's biggest fan in this team. Okay. And I've said this in this team, because I just think that, in a 4-5-1, I like a player that occupies defenders a little bit more than Raul does and gets involved in more goal scoring opportunities than Raul does. Right. I acknowledge that his work rate is fantastic. I think he's good in the build up. At times, I do think there's a lot of times where if he's not scoring, he's not really in the game. And I'm a bit, I suppose it's not really directed at him. I do think the club should have got another striker in sooner than we have. Yes, he's come off the back of 2 goals. One, I think, was off the back of a brilliant ball by Harry Wilson. All he had to do was hit the target, and the other was a penalty. So I don't think they're kind of goals Raul's created out of nothing. He still has to score them, but just to put it in perspective. But look, he's playing every game. He's working really hard. You have to acknowledge that. I don't actually agree with Chris. I actually think there's a lot of fans for Raul in the fan base, and I think he is, in my opinion, actually maybe overappreciated sometimes, given that his output. I mean, 4 goals this season and pretty much started nearly all the games is not really good enough. We need more than that, don't we? So, Timber, you might be better to answer this one as a more pragmatic, because I've kind of got preconceived opinions on Raul Jimenez.
So I think the positive on Raul for the last 2 games is that not only has he scored a couple, obviously, he's had chances in those games.
Yeah.
Before that, he wasn't getting any chances, and that's a concern for any centre forward, whether you're Jimenez, Haaland, or any that you want to mention. If forwards aren't getting opportunities to score, then that's kind of the bread and butter. I mean, I know, you look at Everton, for example, like their 2 forwards. Between them haven't been able to hit a cow's backside with a banjo all season, but because they've had other players chipping in, they've sort of been in an okay position. But they get chances. Like Tierno Barry has had loads of chances and just can't seem to put the ball in the net. Raul doesn't really get that many chances. So as much as the game against Forest on Monday, he kind of, the 2 headers that he had, if he'd have got the contact on it the other way round, as in he got too much on one and not enough on the other, both of them probably would have ended up in the back of the net, or at least on target. So at least he's getting opportunities in those last couple of games. Maybe that's because we're playing some of the poorer opposition in the league compared to some of the stronger teams. I don't know, but I take Dave's point on Raul. I think it's the kind of thing where he's being run into the ground at the moment because we don't have sufficient backup to sort of swap out for him. If he was playing 70 minutes in games, we'd probably be able to see a bit more of what he can do completely, rather than having to pace himself a bit. But yeah, I like him probably more than Dave does, but I do feel that his skill set doesn't necessarily complement the rest of our team as much as maybe a more aggressive back to goal kind of striker would, who we could use as a reference point a bit more. But yeah, can't deny. I appreciate the work rate that he puts in. He doesn't stop running, and actually, it's the kind of thing where he does put some of our other players to shame a little bit in that department. I know there's one in particular that Mike reckons he could beat in the beep test, but you wouldn't beat Raul in the beep test, mate. He does run his socks off. So
absolutely, and I'm just gonna say, look, not all heroes wear capes. He may not be the hero Dave wants, but he's the hero we deserve. We spent very little on him after Mitrovic. He has been a really solid servant to the club. I think I've read somewhere he has 28 goals in 61 games. That's not a bad return for a player that we spent 5 or 7 million on. And Michael, to your point, you look at Raul from last season, and the role he's playing right now is absolutely diametrically opposed to last season, where he knew he was playing 60, 65 minutes every single match. And then Muniz was coming on, and we are changing things up, and we are getting more of that back to goal striker. And you see Raul try to do it. You see him get dragged down as he tries to do it. And I think this is one of those things where, look, if Raul was the striker he was 5, 6 years ago before the head injury, he wouldn't be playing for Fulham. He'd be playing somewhere else. And the effort that he's put in, the fact that he is scoring when we need to, especially when people aren't there, the fact that, let's be honest, again, how nice is it to have a striker who can actually put away a penalty? There is no question who is taking the penalty when he steps up. I'm just saying, if he was wearing sky blue right now, everybody would be commending his performance. Everybody would be talking about his poacher's finishes, and not that he disappears for however much of games. He is doing what his job is right now, which is to put the ball in the back of the net. And for the money that we've spent on him and the options that we have and the service that he's getting, I think it's pretty commendable. And by the way, weird stat for you all, he is the highest scoring he is the highest scoring Fulham player in 2025. He has 10 goals this year, like this calendar year. No one else is close. No one at all. And that's something.
Yeah, no, fair point. No, credit where credit's due. I thought we just end West Ham segment with just Mark's experience at the game. He sent us a little voice note, which I'm just going to now play live to the listeners. If one of you guys can just assist me, if this sound quality is pretty poor, you'll let me know, and I'll try and work my magic. But let me know if this is okay.
Mark here. Just want to drop a quick note to say I finished my first away day, and you know what? It was pretty excellent. Was the Olympic Stadium a bit of a library? Kind of. There was a lot of shifting from our fans, a lot of singing from our fans. Absolutely loved it. I think we stood up most of the match, to be honest. I managed to meet up with Trav the Michler and Skibby and their respective old men, and we came away with a win. So, I mean, can't be too many complaints, right? It was a bit hairy at times. I mean, West Ham had their chances as well, but so did we. But we got the rub of the green, I guess. Cabinet did his absolute best to screw us over. But that's to be expected. You just got to take that into your stride. But anyway, I think I might have to do a few more of these. Very, very enjoyable. And you know what? The stadium itself is not so bad. I think it is the noise and the fact that it's somewhat asymmetrical and just a bit removed from the pitch. But you know what? We got the win. We got the 3 points. 3 wins in a row. Can't really complain. My question to you guys, now that I don't know if I can say I've got the bug, but I'd definitely like to see a few more stadiums, and to the chat as well. What are the best away days? I always hear about St. James's Park, but discuss. Let's find out, and who knows? Maybe I'll try and head up to a few more games in the future.
Well, we can only direct that to Trav the Michler. That's he's the one that goes to them all. So Trav the Michler, what's the best away days?
I mean, if I'm going to recommend one that we've got coming up for the rest of this season, I'd encourage Mark to get himself to Anfield, because that is it's an impressive stadium, and it's it's always good to experience kind of historical legacy stadiums. It's a great city. It's always a good weekend if you go up for the weekend. I'd imagine that Mark can't quite get a hall pass that extends to that when his wife is due in a month or so's time. So maybe one to sort of try and pick your moment with there, Mark. But that's the one that I'd recommend. And I've got a bit of a funny feeling about Anfield this season. I feel like we're due a win up there. Ooh. So that's a hot take, if that's what they're called.
It is what they're called. And actually, it leads us on to quite a nice segue into the run-up now, the fixtures ahead. Obviously, starting with Palace. But I had a little look after the game on, last night. and had a little look to see who we've got over the course of January and February, and it looks on paper like a really tough run. And I'm glad that we've got the points on the board. Now we'll obviously go into Palace in detail in a moment, but away at Palace is not an easy place to go, right? I know we've had some success there recently, but generally not an easy place to go. We then have home games back to back at Liverpool and Chelsea, top sides, and then we'll move on from the FA Cup for a moment. Leeds away, it's a game I'm really not looking forward to. Their home form looks really good. So January's tough. Then we've got Brighton, Man United. Everton's never easy. There's just lots and lots of tough games. So it is really positive to get some points on the board, I think, now, to give us kind of, I suppose, a little bit of comfort. And to be 13 points clear of the relegation zone, it does feel now that we're kind of looking up the table.
Wait, Dave. I thought we were in the same boat as West Ham. I've been hearing a lot of that circulating online recently.
That we're
in the same boat as West Ham. We're in and around them.
Well, I mean, to be fair, though, 3 games ago, before these 3 wins, we were. I think it's just the fact that we've picked up a bit of form and we've punished teams this year, haven't we? If you look at the table, the teams around us would beat. And that's given us a chance. I mean, we've had tough away games, and I think that our season's been a bit funny. I think that we've had a lot of our tough away games early in the year, and that's obviously going to be really difficult for any side to a mid-table side to pick up points from games like Chelsea away and Villa away and the like. But now all of a sudden, whenever we come up against a team we should beat, we have. So that's been encouraging, but there's not too many of them in the next 2 months. So I think, as Steve said here in the chat, you've just got to take them game by game. So let's start with Palace. And in my head, I don't fancy us to win at Palace, and I'm going to this one. It's going to be my first away game of the season. So it's happening on my birthday.
We've definitely lost then. Thank you for that, Dave.
No, that's because the other Mike from Fulham Boston is going to be there.
Yeah, other Mike from Fulham Boston's going too. So that's awesome. So yeah, other Mike's going. We've got the Travellers going because so I'm meeting up with him, and we're going to my friend Ross's, who's also a season ticket. I think he's following in the chat as well. He's invited me over for birthday cake before the game, so I'm quite looking forward to that. He lives literally around the corner from Selhurst Park, so it's very handy. But since Palace beat Fulham, which feels only a few weeks ago, they've lost 3 in a row, and we've won 3 in a row, and a 9-point gap has evaporated. We're now on exactly the same points as them. I mean, Palace, we've also had this news, which you mentioned as well, Levy, that Glasner's not going to sign a contract. That's become quite official now and reported by Fabrizio Romano and the likes. Palace, they've got injuries as well. I looked at their bench today. It looked really, really weak. Have we run into them at the right time again, like we did last season?
I think, at least for me, I was talking to Mark about this when we met earlier in the week. This season reminds me a lot of our first season back under Marco, where we are taking points from the teams in and around us. We're not necessarily taking the points from the big boys this year. This is a season where we're taking points from teams in and around us. And I think this is a very important match. I described this as an Outback Steakhouse version of the season, where it doesn't feel like a great thing, but when you look at it, we're 3 points away from Europe. I think this is a really important match and can be a really good springboard, because if we win off of this and get a couple transfers in early, which, this is Fulham, I can dream, there's this opportunity for us to really, really kick on in the season. And I want to see the boys dig in and push through. And Palace didn't look good today versus Tottenham. And I don't know if that's the run of form that they're in, if it's that news you alluded to about the manager, but this is one where it feels like we might have actually hit them at the right time. I want us to come in with that same mentality that we're willing to dig out these games, that we're going to be hard to beat, that this is going to be a battle of attrition, and we're the ones who take our opportunities. Because I think as we've watched this season and we've seen where we've kind of come apart in matches, and I think about the Palace match, I think about Newcastle in the Cup, we have that mentality occasionally where we just slip at the last minute, where we put our heads down when there's extra time coming up on the board on either side of the half. And I think this is a great opportunity with what we've shown in the last two matches, whether it's pretty or not, whether it's, something that we are magically playing well or not. I think that grit and determination is how we are going to beat a team like Palace right now. And I would really, really love to see us do that one more time. And I would love to see another 1-0, candidly. I know I hear people complain about it, but I'm all in right now.
Yeah. Timbury, we've got to move on because we've got loads of questions. So I just really want to hear you know Palace, you've been there before many times, every season. And we've actually done all right there. We've got a pretty good record at Crystal Palace. Like Camille, are you nervous about this one, or do you think actually we might be playing them at a good time?
I'm less nervous about this one than I was about West Ham on Saturday, so I don't know if that bodes well or not. But I feel like Palace are, because they're at home, the onus is more on them to come at us. Whereas when we play them at the Cottage, they just sit in and soak up the pressure and always sucker punch us. Whereas I feel like we've got a bit more of an opportunity to kind of do that to them. I think what will be key is how either side manages the transitions, because that's where you can really hurt these teams that are very well organised. I think it's because we've got such a congested run of fixtures, as of Palace, game management is kind of key in these situations. Like Mike said, it's sort of a battle of attrition rather than anything else. What's been nice for us in the last couple of games is that our subs have made an impact, whereas the previous games, they just weren't influencing the game at all. So I feel like if we can get those elements right, we might just be able to sort of give Palace a bit of a taste of their own medicine and frustrate them, and then maybe be the team that sort of nicks a goal against them. I mean, I love beating teams 1-0 as well. Perfect. Clean sheet is very sort of, like a coach mentality rather than a, fan that wants to actually see some action and stuff. But, 1-0 with your centre forward scoring is pretty much the blueprint for how to win a game perfectly. So I would take that again, of course. I think it'll be a tough game, but we might just see that Palace are, it depends how much they've got left in the tank as well. And also how much of an eye both sides have got on the upcoming fixtures. Dave, I know you're worried about Liverpool and Chelsea sort of further down the track in terms of on paper being hard games, but I don't know, both of those sides have got weaknesses, and I kind of fancy that if we can get amongst them, certainly Liverpool, you look at the way that they tried to see out a game against 9-man Spurs and almost imploded. They struggled against Wolves on Saturday again. Wolves are the team that, they've got 2 points, for goodness sake. I mean, they've got the same number of draws as us, which I thought was quite funny. It's just that we've got 8 wins to their none. But yeah, sorry, Wolves. But yeah, I think there's things in these games for us. So I don't think we should be thinking, oh, we're not going to pick up any points. I know we had that really weird run earlier in the season where we lost, was it 4 in a row or something like that?
Yeah.
Kind of feel like we're in a better place mentally now to be able to tackle some of these more challenging fixtures. And okay, squad's a bit thin at the moment, but I feel like the mentality's right, and there's a positive sort of mood in the camp that kind of means that we'll sort of meet these challenges in the right way, and hopefully we can get some positive results.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to move on from Palace now, just in the interest of time. And Levy, I've got some questions that have been put into our Discord, and I really there's some excellent questions in there. The first one is...
Shout out to the Discord, by the way.
Oh, yeah, log in, join up. Actually, we got tons of new members over Christmas, I think. So, yeah, it's really popping off at the moment. And transfer window is always brilliant in the Discord because we get a little insider info from Fulham fan news, and Jack Kelly is on there too. So Those guys are very much active members of the community there, and yeah, you get little stuff that you don't normally see on X. So we really appreciate that from those guys. Anyway, question from Mark, our very own Mark. He just said, and this is an interesting point. He said, for the last 3 seasons, we've consistently been 8th in the table for most yellow cards. Are we more streetwise than we look, or do we give away cheap fouls? That's for Mike Levy. I'm going to throw that one too.
That's really interesting because I think we've had this reputation, at least since I've been a supporter, about us being a nice family club. And I think over the last couple seasons, maybe it coincides actually with Marco Silva joining the team. We've started to get better with the dark arts, and whether that's Mitrovic, whether that's Joachim Anderson, whether that was João Palhinha, now Sasa Lukic is taking over. We've developed this little streak in us that I kind of like seeing. I mean, even, you know, if we want to go back, Steph Joe was the godfather of all of this. But it's really interesting to see that we've had this little more of this savviness to us recently. I think that goes both ways, though, unfortunately. And I think us being a little more streetwise in the last couple of years has developed a bit of a reputation. The fact that I'm trying to remember, Wilson got one, but somebody else got a yellow. I think it was Anderson.
It was King. No, Josh King did exactly what Mark's alluding to here. When he came on, he lost the ball and the West Ham player broke and he pulled him back.
Yeah,
if you remember.
I mean, that's absolutely a yellow, and that's a great yellow to take. But I'm thinking about the Anderson yellow, which I guess was accumulation. But it wasn't really I didn't actually even think he got him. I thought it was actually somebody made a meal of it. And then Wilson getting a yellow for dissent. That's not very much the Fulham that I have heard the reputation of. So I think we've gotten a little bit streetwise, but I also think that our reputation is starting to precede us with referees a little bit. And again, we even talk about it today, and I don't know about both of you, but there are some referees I know I'm in for a rough day when I see them out there, Kavanaugh being one of them. That yeah, exactly. That I'm just like, yeah, I like to think it all comes out even in the wash, because we have somebody like Anthony Taylor, who I think likes us a little bit more. Maybe.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But I like to think it all evens out in the wash, but I don't know. I feel like some refs have a point to prove in saying that, hey, you know, Fulham aren't just the nice guys you think they are. They do have this, you know, this ruggedness to them.
Absolutely. Right. Now we've got another one from Mary Townsend Southgate, who, God, we've got to get her back on the show soon. It's been far too long. It's been about over a month since Townsend's been on the show. So we'll sort that out for you guys. But Timbury, her question was, it's been great seeing ESR growing in confidence and getting a couple of goals since he's been in the starting 11. Do you think there's a link between our recent success of results, including scoring 4 vs Man City, and ESR starting?
Well, I mean, yeah, because he gets on the score sheet, he gets in the box, and you know, it's something that he's always kind of had in his locker. I feel like he's somebody who, he doesn't necessarily sort of turn things around for us, but when we're playing well, he comes to life a bit, and he then kind of kicks on and takes it to the next level. I'm not entirely sure that makes sense, but I hope people understand what I mean. I feel like, you know, we're only going to be a better side with him playing well in it rather than him not being in it, because I think he's such a good technical footballer. I feel like the Man City game felt like it was played at such a high tempo that he really excelled in that, because it required him to play at his best. Whereas when the game is at a bit of a slower tempo, he tends to kind of, you know, just sort of ease himself into it a little bit rather than grabbing a game by the scruff of the neck. So maybe it just requires a bit of, you know, an accelerated sort of momentum to the game for him to really come to life and show his best. And that's, I think that Man City performance in particular that Mary alludes to was, you know, really impressive for him. And that's kind of kickstarted his season to a degree, because, you know, it's given him that confidence. We know that he can chip in with goals, and we want more of those from him. So, yeah, I think there is a link there, but I don't think it's entirely dependent on one or the other. But they complement each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I do want to say, I found this out recently. It is illegal for me to send alcoholic beverages across the ocean. But if anyone can buy me something, and I'm happy to send them money for this, and just send a bottle to our fitness coach who has really been investing with ESR, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, do you know what? Good point. He does look fully fit all of a sudden.
Yeah.
For the first time in his
Closer.
career.
I can't say that until he actually completes a full 90, but I said this on the last episode.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. There's a reality television show called The Challenge in the US, and one of the key players is a guy named CT. And you can tell when the finale is getting closer because CT always comes in out of shape, and the more you can see his jawline and his chin, that's where you know the serious time is coming. And you're starting to see ESR's chin. I have the doll in the other room. I should have brought it here today. But it's starting to round out.
It
in a
is.
positive way.
It's really pleasing to see. Right, so we've got 2 questions as well from Steve, who's following on the chat too. So I'll give one to the Traveller and one to Levy. So for no particular reason, Traveller, if we were to make an expensive signing early on, would that be a pointer that Marco is signing and staying?
Yeah, you'd think so, because I think Silva staying is hugely dependent on what happens in January. If we get to the end of the month and we've not signed anything, or we haven't signed what Silva deems to be sufficient, he's off. It doesn't necessarily need to be an expensive signing that we make in January. It just needs to be what Silva wants. So that, and if that happens early, great. But don't hold your breath, because it's Fulham and it will be on the 31st of January or wherever the window shuts.
Completely agree with all of that. Levy, I mean, we're welcome to jump in on that, but I do have a second question from Steve. Sorry, I had too many beers burping now. Could this be the first season in a while that with AFCON boys back, injuries sorted, and a possible signing or two, that we look to push on in the Premier League rather than drop off like we've done in previous seasons?
That is so many ifs, ands, buts, potentialities, maybes. I would love to believe it. I would love to, and you've seen some of the images and videos of Muniz starting to walk around and starting to work out again, and I think that'll be great. I do think we need to acknowledge how much the AFCON boys are playing. Maybe Chukwueze a little bit less, but they are going to be getting minutes in their legs. It's not like they're on holiday right now and kind of relaxing and putting their feet up. But I do want this to be an opportunity for us to kick on. You look at the table right now, and I believe between Chelsea in 5th and Brighton in 13th is separated by 5 points, and we're in the middle of that. Like, there's a great opportunity for us to kick on. And in terms of investment, I think this is the time we need to do it. I'm not well versed on SCR right now. It looked preliminarily like we were one of the kind of ones right on the edge. So maybe we have to figure out, some loose change in the pockets, send Adama to West Ham, something like that. I don't know, as a gift for what they did for us. But I think there's a really good opportunity for us to kick on if we can get players in, continue to have them buy in. And yes, Marco signing a new contract, I think, could be an amazing catalyst as just kind of that cherry or star or angel or whatever you all put on top of your trees on top, just to help us kick into that next phase. But I think this is a really good opportunity, and I want us to take it. I'm not ready to say that I'd be ready to forego, and Colm just beat me to it. I'm not sure I'm ready to forego the cup run necessarily in the FA Cup for this, but I love how close we're in it. And you look at the other teams that are in and around us, and maybe I'm a little bit of a cynic. I don't know if Sunderland's going to maintain the form that they're on right now. I have not been, from what I've watched, overly impressed with United. Chelsea losing to Villa yesterday was a pretty ridiculous one. So I think we have just as good a chance as anybody for us to kind of keep ourselves alive in there. But I think, number one, getting everybody back healthy and fit, huge. Having the boys come back from AFCON and assimilating back in, fantastic. getting at least one signing a little bit early. And then, yeah, Michael, we can leave everything else to the 31st if you want. That's fine. You and Tony can go sit and, have some Mai Tais or something for the rest of the month of January. And then, kind of to give us that all the present that at least I want under the tree. I'm not sure about both of you. I want the new Silva contract. We really do need to build this club in his image and continue to do that. He's asked so much of us. And I think to the fan base's credit, we have tried to step up and do what he has been asking us for in creating a fortress around Craven Cottage. You look at our home form this year, and that is representative. But I think there's more to come from this team. I think Wilson maintaining this form, getting better service into whether it's Raul Muniz or Ricardo Pepi or another striker that we're looking at right now. I just think there's this really cool opportunity. We have 3 very, very solid center backs. We have 3 very solid center mids. We have 2 players essentially in every position. I'm really excited about the second half of the season. Maybe I'm being too optimistic and, I'm being naive, but I want to see it continue, and I want to see us finish the job this time and see if we can get a 7th.
There we go.
Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, it's a good roll call. And we've actually just Jack Barenzi's just woken up. I don't know what time it is over there, but he's obviously shut the bed or something. I don't know what's going on, but he's jumped into the group. So welcome to Jack. Michael, I just wanted to ask you, Traveller, just quickly, because we are at 1 hour 10 now. It's over our time slot, but I want to ask you.
Oh, come on. They love hearing us. They can listen for a bit longer.
It's a Christmas special. They've always got to be a bit longer than the standard episodes. So.
Can we get comments if they want us to keep us going for a few more minutes past the hour mark?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Well, look, Charlie, I was just going to ask you on the point that Mike just made about bringing players in. There's obviously fringe players as well that we can move out. You mentioned Adama to West Ham as a gift. I don't know if I'd describe it the same way. I think it would be, it was the opposite of a gift. Anyway, but we've also got Harrison Reed, who I would imagine probably wants to move on himself to get a bit of regular football towards the end of his career. So what would you like to see this transfer? What's it going to take to keep Marco in the job? And would he accommodate a few sales as well for players like I've just mentioned to achieve the incomings that we need?
Yeah, I feel like in order to kind of bring bodies in, we'd probably have to free up some space, even just for the wages, for, because the way that, PSR rules and soon to be SCR rules are, they're not designed for clubs like us to flourish in. They don't want our owner spending his own money on the football club that he owns. We need to sell more shirts in Singapore or, charge more tickets for fans. So
no, bring him out to the US. Bring him out here.
Yeah, but putting all of that aside, I think if we could get what we're looking for, a forward, preferably one who is flexible enough to play out wide as well if we need to, so that we can be a bit more adaptable, i.e. the situation we're in at the moment would have hugely benefited from having that as an option. I think we seem to be sniffing around wide players as well. There's been links with like Oscar Bob, for example, and 1 or 2 others, I think. So
Raheem Sterling.
Not Sterling. We want people that are like hungry and ambitious and not sort of at the end of the road, but want to stay in the house that they currently own and live in. I think if we could do that, and then for me, the other one would be like a midfield playmaker. I think we almost want somebody with a similar skill set to Tom Kearney, but is 23 or 24 rather than where Kearney is in his situation. I feel like, Harrison Reed is someone who's been a great servant to the club and, have been a fan, but I think it's kind of his time has come and gone now with us in terms of what he can contribute. I would sort of be worried if, say, for example, we had a couple of midfield injuries and we had to start him every week, because I just don't feel like he's up to the level anymore. So, if he was to move out in order to make way for a new midfield player, that would be fine by me. I'd wish him all the best. I think he could do a great job for somebody, upper championship or maybe even, a struggling lower Premier League side, although I wouldn't wish that on him. I'd rather he goes and plays somewhere every week in a good team like he did for us in the championship. But yeah, I think if we could get 2 or 3 bodies in that, caliber that are going to improve the team. They're not going to be bit part players or squad players. We want players that are going to come in and compete for first team positions to really help us kick on. I feel like we could achieve what Mike said, because we've always kind of dropped off in the second half of seasons. We've started strong and kind of faded a little bit when it's come to the crunch, whereas actually, a few extra bodies in can kind of lift things and help people sort of up their game in terms of having to fight for their place. That, coupled with the announcement of a new contract for Marco at the right time, could really give us the shot in the arm that we need to really kick on and hopefully finish in our highest ever league position, or at least joint highest ever league position, and maybe even secure a European space where God knows how we'd manage that with the number of games that we'd have, but we'll cross that bridge if and when we get to it.
Absolutely.
Dave, I know you didn't say this. I know Michael did, but I'm really curious, especially with the knowledge that Rodrigo Muniz is coming back in February. If we're looking at a first team player, who are you looking to replace right now?
I think that, some proactive planning, which we're not great at. We like reactive stuff, but if we were going to do some proactive planning, we'd probably look to try and bring in the striker now, because there's no guarantee that Muniz won't have a setback or might come back and get injured again. Raul, I think everyone knows he's going to leave at the end of this season. So it would be really sensible if we can find a good striker to bring in now. That will be, the idea would be they would compete with Muniz for the 9 next year, but actually would just help us out for the back end of this year. That'd make a lot of sense. I don't think we need a wide player personally. I know a lot of people, even if we lose Adama, just because I think when AFCON's over, Iwobi and Chukwueze are back, and I think Cess will be back soon. And now Robinson's fit, Cess can be that wing option that that Adama's been providing. And I'm not a big fan of just stocking players, that's hard for Marco to manage. So for me, I don't think we necessarily need that. And we certainly, in my opinion, don't need Sterling. I'd be very worried about his condition as a footballer. But and as Michael said, I think we've needed a midfielder for the last maybe 3 windows, maybe 4. Basically, ever since Kearney's not been a first teamer, we haven't replaced him. We need someone who's comfortable on the ball, and able to chip in with goals as well. So that is, I think, as Michael the Traveller said, or Trav the Michaeler, he said that according to Mark, he said that look, I've lost my train of thought now.
So Dave, you're being beige still. So Michael, I'm going to push this to you, and he's being as beige as the bow in the background. I'm not asking you right now who you want to bring in. I'm asking you who loses the place. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Michael. Who do you think loses the place?
What? So if we brought a striker in?
No. If we brought in what you called a first team, or somebody to compete for the first team, who is getting dropped?
Well, so I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit here and say there's nobody getting dropped because they got to fight for their place. So at the moment, Harry Wilson's got the shirt because he's been excellent, and Chukwueze before he went to AFCON was excellent. So if we're talking about we bring a winger in, that winger has got to displace one of those two. Or, if Kevin's form picks up like we hope it all does, then when Chukwueze comes back from AFCON, he's got to fight for his place. So I'm not necessarily saying we need to bring in somebody to go straight into the first team, but they need to be somebody I feel, if we're going to really kick on, is going to challenge for that position. Whereas, we brought in Kusiaseri as our third choice striker. He is nowhere near the level required to challenge for that first team position. So that's a pointless signing in my book, really, unless you're bringing somebody like that in and with the idea that they'll be ready in a year or 18 months' time. I don't think we need that kind of signing at the moment. We need people who, if we're going to kick on, they should be challenging. So I appreciate that's a very sort of diplomatic answer to the question you're asking.
Raul and Lukic.
So I like this, and I'll be honest. We've talked a lot about wingers. We've talked a lot about strikers, and I think a lot of people do forget that at some point Muniz is going to be back. I actually think it probably is Lukic or Berger is the one who needs to drop out. I know Iwobi is going to come back, and I really hope Marco has been watching the games and seen that Iwobi really is an integral part of the team when he's a center mid as opposed to a winger for us. I think he just provides us something different with his vision, something almost Kearney-esque. I don't think he sees the past the same way Kearney does, but simultaneously, I would love for us to get in. And I don't know if it's a Hayden Hackney. I do know that it's not a Weston McKinney, but seeing somebody come in to that area and take the shirt and move us up another level, that's what I want to see.
Completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's a different skill set to what we've got. So it's if we bring somebody in of that ilk, then fine. A playmaker type. We need somebody who can sort of dictate the play. But if we don't get that, and we got a similar body to like a Berger or a Lukic, not that I think that we need that. I wouldn't necessarily say they would be displaced. Like, it depends on what the profile of player that we bring in is as to whether they go straight into the team or not.
We have a similar body, though, to Berger or Lukic. It's called Berger or Lukic.
Well, yeah. We only need the one for the position. Like, like even yesterday, you could sort of see that we were a bit sort of like lacking somebody to set the tempo a bit, and it was quite passive at times. But I think that might have been as fatigue as much as anything.
But we've seen Tom Kearney come off the bench in each of the last two games and fundamentally change the way that we play, dictate the passages of play, and change the vision, change the tempo. Again, I love Tom Kearney. He is not a 90-minute player. I don't even know if he's a 30-minute player anymore. Maybe he is, but the last two matches, having a player with that eye has really changed the way that we've played. And I think there is a direct correlation going back to, I think it was Mary's question about kind of how we've been playing. We've been scoring goals and we've been looked more threatening when we get that kind of player on the pitch.
Agree with that.
Completely agree. Right, I am going to bring it to an end now, guys. We're getting on for an hour and 20. I'm getting very anxious here. And, it's been a great show. We had a lot of fun. We have had a lot of fun. I've had a really good time talking about the 3 victories in a row. And maybe we can make it 4. Maybe we can make it 4 on my birthday. So,
4 more beers. 4 more beers.
4 more beers, 4 more wins. Yeah, absolutely. So let's see what we can do on Thursday against Palace. And thanks everyone for joining us. All the comments, they've been great. We'd love using those to improve the show. So thanks very much, and thanks for all the questions in the Discord group too. Thanks to both Trav the Michler and to Motus. Don't forget, sign up, follow Fulham Boston on X and Fulham DC on X as well. Those guys are unbelievable, and they're even creating their own merch now. The scarf that Mike's wearing. So follow those guys on X too, because Fulham USA is the follow is just unbelievable. So all I have to say is brilliant. Let's enjoy the moment. 3 wins on the trot. We've had a great Christmas. Let's make it a happy new year. And Mike, can you see us off? One of you Mikes, see us off with a come on you whites.
Come on you